Okay, hey, let's be honest. Failure is uncomfortable, and nobody likes thinking about it. You know what? Much less planning for it. But what if I told you that failure isn't something to fear? What if instead it could be the very thing that sets you up for success? And you see, that's something I had to learn the hard way, and it completely changed how I approached everything from big projects in my daily routines. For years, I thought success meant avoiding failure at all costs. I'd try to anticipate every obstacle, craft perfect plans, and set high expectations for myself. But when things didn't go as planned, I felt defeated, like I'd failed, not just at the task, but as a person. It wasn't until I actually started building Blakebill that I truly understood the power of planning for failure. It was through learning to expect and prepare for setbacks that I found resilience and keep going. So here's what I've learned. Planning for failure isn't about expecting the worst or giving up before you start. It's about being realistic about the challenges you'll face and creating systems to navigate them. So when you do this, failure becomes a part of the process, not the end of the road. So let me walk you through how this mindset transformed my work and how it's going to transform yours too. Why we fear failure and why we shouldn't. Failure. Just hearing the word can make your stomach sink. It's something most of the time we spend our lives avoiding. You know what? Even dreading. But why does failure hold so much power over us? Why does the thought of falling short, making mistakes, or not meeting expectations feel so overwhelming? You know, from a young age, we're conditioned to see failure as a negative thing, a reflection of our work or abilities. You know, in school, failure meant red marks on a test or a report card that didn't live up to expectations. In our personal lives, it had meant disappointing someone we had cared about. These experiences shape how we feel failure as adults, as something to be avoided at all costs. Our fear of failure often stems from a few deeply ingrained beliefs. One of the biggest is the idea that failure is final. When something doesn't work, it can feel like the end of the road, a dead end with no way forward. This belief creates a sense of hopelessness, making it harder to see failure for what it really is, a temporary setback, not a permanent state. Another source of fear is the pressure to be perfect. We live in a culture that celebrates success and rewards achievements. Social media only amplifies this, with its endless highlight reels of people seemingly living flawless lives. The result is that failure feels like a personal flaw, something to be ashamed of. We start to think that if we fail, it means we're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. Fear of judgment also plays a big role. Nobody wants to be seen as a failure. We worry about what others think if we don't succeed, whether our peers or our family or even strangers online. This fear of judgment can be paralyzing, keeping us from taking risks or trying new things because we're afraid of how it might look if we don't succeed. Perhaps the most insidious reason we fear failure is because it challenges our identity. When we fail, it can feel like a threat to the story that we're trying to tell ourselves about who we are. If you've always believed that you're good at something, your job, as a skill, or even relationships, failure can make you question that belief. It forces you to confront the possibility that you're not as capable or as confident as you thought. And that's a hard pill to swallow. The fear of failure isn't just limiting, it's misplaced. Failure isn't a reflection of your worth or abilities. It's a natural, inevitable part of growth. In fact, failure is one of the most valuable tools we have learning for improvement. If you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. You're staying within your comfort zone where it's safe but stagnant. When you start to see failure in this light, it becomes less intimidating. Instead of viewing it as something to avoid, you can start to see it as something to embrace. Failure shows you what doesn't work, which brings you closer to finding what does. It teaches you resilience, adaptability, and perseverance. Every failure carries a lesson, and those lessons are what help you grow. The truth is, the most successful people in the world have failed, and failed spectacularly. Gosh, think about athletes, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Behind every victory is a string of failures that shaped them into who they are. The difference isn't that they avoided failure, it's that they didn't let failure stop them. They used it as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. When you let go of the fear of failure, something incredible happens. You become free. Free to take risks, free to try new things, free to pursue your goals without the weight of perfection holding you back. Failure doesn't have to be the end of the road. It can be the beginning of something even better. So, the next time you're actually faced with this possibility of failure, you gotta ask yourself this. What's the worst that can happen? And more importantly, what could I learn from it? You might be surprised about how much failure has to teach you and how much it's going to help you grow. My turning point, building Blakebill.com. There's something about hitting a wall that forces you to rethink everything. For me, it was a constant frustration of managing freelancing projects, transferring files to the clients and then getting paid. That should have been straightforward, but you know what? It isn't. It was an endless cycle of emails, follow-ups, and missed payments. The more I tried to patch together solutions, the more I realized that my process was broken. And that frustration frustration became the turning point where everything changed, and the idea for Blakebill was born. At first, I didn't set out to create a platform. I just wanted to solve my own problem. I was tired of using like the clunky file sharing tools that we have, chasing clients for invoices and wasting time on tasks that felt like they should have been automated years ago. Each project felt like a logistical nightmare, and it was draining my energy. Instead of focusing on my creative work, I was stuck in an endless loop of admin tasks. It was the moment I realized, if I don't fix this, nothing will. Then the thought of building something like Blakebill was intimidating. I wasn't a software developer, and I didn't have experience creating platforms, but I was determined. I knew there had to be a way to streamline the process, a tool that would let me transfer files quickly and securely while ensuring I got paid immediately. No more waiting for invoices to clear, no more awkward follow-ups. It was just a simple, seamless process. So that determination became the foundation of Blakebill.com. So instead of the complex features of trying to reinvent the wheel, I focused on one core question. What's the simplest way to solve this problem? So for that question, the vision of Blakebill actually began to take shape. First step was actually breaking down the pain points that I was facing. Why was file sharing so complicated? Why were payments so slow? Why did every project feel like it required a dozen extra steps? As I dug into these questions, I realized that the existing tools weren't designed for freelancers like me. They were too generic or way too cumbersome. What I needed was something built specifically for the way that I worked. The idea for Blakebill was simple. You just upload your files, you set a price, you send the link. The client pays to access the files, and then the process is complete. There's no middle steps, there's no confusion, there's no wasted time. It sounded almost too simple, but that's the beauty of it. Simplicity is what made those things work. Building Blakebill wasn't without its challenges. I had to step outside my comfort zone in ways I never thought I could. There were technical hurdles, moments of self-doubt, and plenty trial and error. And I remember spending late nights researching, testing, and tweaking the platform, trying to make sure it was intuitive as possible. There were times when it felt like I'd never figure it out, but every setback became as a chance to learn. Instead of giving up, I asked myself, what can I do differently? That question became my guiding principle. One of the biggest lessons I learned was the importance of listening to feedback. So when I started testing Blakebill with a small group of users, their input was invaluable. They pointed out things that I hadn't even considered, small tweaks that made the platform even better. It reminded me that building something isn't about solving your own problem, it's also about creating value for others. So as Blakebill started to take shape, something unexpected happened. I realized how much this process was changing me. Building the platform wasn't about creating a tool, it was about adopting a new mindset. So I stopped seeing challenges as obstacles and I actually started seeing them as opportunities. Every roadblock was a chance to innovate, to try something new, and to grow. It wasn't about the platform that was just transforming. I was too. So when Blakebill launched, it was more than just a solution to a problem. It was proof that stepping outside your comfort zone and tackling a challenge head on can lead to something incredible. The platform didn't just make my workflow easier, it gave me back time, my energy, and my focus. Instead of getting bogged down in logistics, I could finally concentrate on what I loved, which was doing great work for clients. So looking back, building Blakebill was one of the most challenging and rewarding experiences that I've had in my life so far. So it taught me sometimes that the biggest breakthroughs come from the biggest frustrations. When you're willing to face those challenges head on, you're not just solving problems, you're creating opportunities. And that's the real power of the turning point. It's not just a moment of change, it's a moment of growth. The power of resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, adapt to challenges, and keep going when things don't go as planned. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about learning to move forward despite it. Resilience isn't glamorous, but it's often the quiet force behind success. It's what helps you navigate roadblocks and turn setbacks into stepping stones. Failure and challenges are inevitable. No matter how well you plan, things will go wrong. Resilience doesn't remove these obstacles. It equips you to handle them. It's not about gritting your teeth and pushing through blindly. It's about adaptability, finding new approaches, and learning from mistakes. Resilience lets you see failure not as an endpoint, but as a part of the journey. The true strength of resilience lies in its ability to transform failure into growth. Instead of viewing mistakes as setbacks, resilience reframes them as opportunities to learn. Each challenge you overcome builds your capacity to face future hurdles with more confidence and clarity. Over time, resilience becomes a foundation for personal and professional growth. Building resilience doesn't happen overnight. Like a muscle, it grows stronger with each use. Each time you face adversity and you choose to keep going, you're reinforcing your ability to bounce back. Resilience also brings perspective, helping you see setbacks as temporary and manageable rather than insurmountable. Resilience inspires those around you. When others see you navigating challenges with determination, it sends a message that setbacks don't define you. It encourages them to embrace their own challenges, creating a ripple effect of perseverance and growth. To cultivate resilience, shift your mindset. View failure as part of growth, not a reflection of your worth. Focus on what you can control, your effort, attitude, and willingness to adapt. Surround yourself with supportive people and give yourself permission to fail without self-judgment. Resilience isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Remember, resilience transforms adversity into opportunity. It allows you to rise after every stumble and move forward with greater strength and clarity. It's the key to navigating life's challenges and achieving meaningful, lasting success. Why failure is a gift. Failure often feels like the end of the road, but in reality, it's one of the greatest teachers. While success can validate your efforts, failure shines a light on where you need to grow. It forces you to control what isn't working and adapt, helping you become stronger and more capable in the process. Far from being something to avoid, failure is an essential part of growth. One of the most valuable lessons failure teaches is resilience. When those things don't go as planned, you have a choice to give up or try again. Every time you choose to keep going, you build your ability to persevere. Resilience is innate. It developed through facing overcoming challenges. Failure provides the opportunity to practice it. Failure also brings clarity. When plans fall apart, you're often forced to reevaluate your goals and approach. It helps you see whether you are on the right path or chasing something that truly didn't matter. This reset allows you to refocus on what's important and make better decisions moving forward. Another gift of failure is the humility it brings. It reminds you that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. This humility opens the door to collaboration and learning, helping you grow in ways you couldn't if you always succeeded. It's often in failure that we become more open to feedback and new ideas. Perhaps the most freeing lesson in failure teaches that it's not the end of the world. Once you failed, you realize that the fear of failure is often worse than the failure itself. This realization gives you the confidence to take bigger risks, pursue ambitious goals, and push past your comfort zone. Failure is a mirror that reflects both your weaknesses and your strengths. It's a sign of inadequacy. It's proof that you're trying, learning, and growing. Every setback brings with the opportunity to adapt and improve. So when you start to see failure not as a stop sign, but as a stepping stone, it becomes one of your greatest assets.